Hello and welcome to Shoot the Breeze, where we take a nostalgic look at a random football magazine from the past. I'm Andy Smith, aka Scott's Footy Cards on Twitter, and with me is Tom Brogan.
Hello.
In each episode we'll invite a special guest to join us in trawling through the magazine and discuss anything contained within it. This could be anything from an article, to a photograph, to a competition, to an advert. Basically, if it's in it, then we'll talk about it. So sit back and let's shoot the breeze.
Wriggles clear, might just get the chip, and he does, he's scored! Oh, what a great backlash! He's done it! Oh, brilliant play! Wiggling his way, that's an excellent ball, and Dini! It's a goal, that's four for Clydebank. Excellent play by Hughes. I think the player of the match, and sweetly finished by Penny.
Welcome to part 2 of our podcast with Morton legend Andy Ritchie. Let's pop back in as we chat through a Shoot magazine from the 2nd of August 1980.
Alright, we quite look at the goal lines, which is the letters page in there. So there's a couple of letters about football hooliganism. It's just after August 1980, so it's just after the European Championships in Italy, and the England-Italy game seen some trouble, which I remember with the tear gas. That was the police had used. First letter: after the recent European Championship in Italy, the British public has been put to shame once more. This is not due to the poor football served up by England, but the fact that a minority of England supporters, in inverted commas, had to start fighting and cause riots on the terraces in Turin. The English disease, it is called abroad, should be wiped out once and for all before the British police have to revert to the methods of the Italian police. And so this letter writer suggests ways round it. Supporters clubs could be made compulsory and the only means of getting into any ground, home and abroad. Identity cards could be issued to everyone belonging to these clubs with a person's name, address, photograph, signature and a serial number on. Any bad behaviour could warrant the card being confiscated, which would be an automatic ban. And the second letter is just, I'm writing to tell you the disgust I felt when the so-called English fans started fighting against Belgium and Italy. What really annoyed me was the way the English fans complained afterwards about the methods that Italian police used to stop the riot. And Shoot's reply there was, I was in Turin for that game, and much of the blame must lie with the Italian police. They allowed a small scuffle to develop into a full-scale fight and did nothing for 6 or 7 minutes. Then they went in with tear gas and batons. I do not condone the behaviour of the 50 or so English fans who were fighting, but it saddened me to see the Italian police hitting any England fan they could lay their batons on.
Yeah, don't you hanker for the good old days, eh? They were terrible times in football and all over the world. Absolutely shocking times. I'm glad we don't live in them this moment in time now. Yeah. In fact, the safest place you'll be now at a football game's in the park, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I spent time when I finished the game working down in London. And as I mentioned earlier on, Big Neely was at West Ham by that time. And Joe was at Chelsea. So never to look a gift horse in the mouth. I was on the phone to them. So one week, Neely would leave tickets for me at West Ham. And the following week, Big Joe would leave me tickets at Chelsea. So I became a West Ham / Chelsea supporter for a few years. And I must admit, travelling, I lived in the city, so travelling out to the East End to West Ham, or travelling across the city to Chelsea for games, some of the most frightening situations I've ever been involved in. You know, just pointless to be driving, you know, because it takes you 3 hours to get from where I was to Chelsea at peak time. So you had to take the tubes and you had to travel like everybody did, a normal supporter, frighten the life out of you. They were running riots in the tubes and the subways. And the really smart thing at that time, you probably don't remember it because you're two young guys. The smart idea was to get one of the Stanley knives, and as you run by somebody, cut them in the back side as you're running by. So you got a grip of them up here and by, and next thing, somebody would just slice somebody's backside wide open. You see guys going about, blood dripping all over the place, and you knew that, you know, football supporters weren't too far away. Happened regular at West Ham games, coming up for the tube stations. They would, what was it they called it, steaming. So the supporters would rush for the back right through to get to the front. And these guys, and you had to, if you didn't dive out the road, you could have got yourself a right sore. But that was their fun, their trick. You know, they cut somebody in the backside with these Stanley knives and move on. You know, it didn't kill them, but it certainly made a mess of you. You'd see ambulances all over the place picking people up with cut backsides. I thought to myself, God, you know, fighting on the tubes and the subways and waiting in the tubes back into London again was an absolute. They were shocking times. You know, you really had to be mad keen on your fitba to go to a football game at that time. Down south anyway. Down south in that London area when I was there. You really had to be mad on your fitba. I hope we never go back to anything like that again.
Absolutely.
So anything, Andy Smith, do you see any letters?
Well, it's just the one, Super Saints. I must congratulate shoot readers everywhere who voted for Davy Provan as Scotland's most exciting player of the season. Well done too, Kenny Dalglish, on your hat-trick of shoot titles. As you probably guessed, I am a Celtic supporter, but not a biased one. My favourite other team is St Mirren. I'd like to give credit to the Saints. Some people say the Premier League in Scotland is driving people away instead of into the grounds, but in some cases that's not true. St Mirren, for example, with quality players such as Billy Thompson, Doug Sumner and Peter Weir to name but a few, are putting hundreds on the gates at Love Street and away grounds every week. The Saints' style of attractive football, which earned them a place in Europe next season and won them the Anglo-Scottish Cup for the first time, deserve their success. And it's got a cracking picture of Davy Provan there.
That's great hair, that, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant big hair. His shirt tucked out as well, which was very much his style. And you can't see his socks, but no doubt they're hanging round his ankles without any shin guards on as well.
At his peak, he was exciting and dynamic, and he was brave as well. A lot of people didn't give him credit for that. He didn't kick the Provo out of the game, you know. He kept coming back. Wee Davy Hayes tried a few times, and Jimmy Holmes certainly tried a few times to put the nail on him, but never managed to do it. Provo's smashing player for Celtic like that. And there you go. I think Provo, talk about testimonials, Provo got one, didn't he? He got one at Celtic Park. And I remember at the time he had to give up the game early. Another good reason for, you know, giving players testimonials when, you know, when they were injured or had to give up the game early.
Yeah.
I bet you'd pay a few quid for that here now.
Yeah, it's a belter.
So page 20 there's a nice wee advert for Nike trainers. The Magnificent Seven, the black trainer range from Nike. Yeah, some smart looking training shoes.
They advertising new Nike, do they?
No.
Don't think they need to do that now.
You know. And if we move over to...
Well, just before we do, Tom, so down the bottom left-hand corner...
you see it? It's brilliant. They're advertising a Clyde strip for £6 underneath an Argentina strip for £6. Is that what you noticed, Andy?
Aye, well, it's the fact that you've got Argentina, you've got England, you've got West Ham, and in between you've got Clyde, Dundee, and LA Aztecs. And as I say, £4 for boys and £6 for... And this is Lumley's Sucky Hall Street in Glasgow as well, which is a well-known place.
Must have been a big run on Clyde strips at that time, eh?
Aye.
The bully wee. That's good. That's good. You wouldn't get adverts like that, though.
No. I mean that is an absolute, that's manna from heaven for people who collect. I mean the kits that would be in there we're probably talking Admiral kits for the Aztecs and West Ham probably, and maybe even the Dundee one would be Admiral as well at that point, which are just collector's items nowadays.
See, they're advertising Visa at the bottom of it, because very few people with credit cards for all that nonsense at that time, you know. Yeah, so you need to advertise your Visa card.
So yeah, page 22 then we'll go to. So page 22 is soccer in the States. So again, we were talking about football in America earlier on. So a few wee snippets. The brilliant goalkeeping of Phil Parks has helped Chicago sting to the top of the American Conference Central Division and the third best points tally in the league. We've got Marsh quits. Rodney Marsh has resigned as coach of American Soccer League side New York United. And David Harvey Vancouver, who signed David Harvey for £100,000 before the start of the season, gave my contract worth £40,000 a year, have decided to release him after just 7 games from the club. Harvey, former Leeds and Scotland hero, lost his place to Bruce Grobbelaar earlier in the season and has been forced to sit on the bench for the past 3 months. It's a troublesome time for Vancouver, who recently released Alan Ball and Willie Johnston.
Some players had in the States at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they were taking players at that time at the end of their careers. You know, that was the way it worked a wee bit. You went out there to earn yourself a few quid at the end of it on. Let you and your family live in the sunshine for a couple of years if you can, you know.
Yeah.
So it suited everybody, you know. Suited £40,000 a year their contracts are talking about. It was a big contract. It's a lot of money at that time, you know.
It's nearly the same that an English cricket player would get as well, eh?
There you go. There you go. And they're getting that for being a reserve team goalkeeper there in America. I like how he's a reserve team goalkeeper to Bruce Grobbelaar. Was that prior to Bruce Grobbelaar coming to Liverpool?
It was, yes. Yeah. So Bruce had he went on loan to Crewe from Vancouver, but he moved to Liverpool just the year following this. I think March 1981. This is so probably about 6 months after this magazine or something. That's when he moved to Liverpool.
Mm-hmm. I see at the bottom that Parks is reportedly getting double the $15,000 a year he was earning at Vancouver. I know a Deliveroo guy that gets £15,000 a year. You know, that's the thing. You know, look at the monetary side of things now, you know, and that always fascinates me. No, I'm fascinated with money. I like it like everybody else. But, you know, what boys were playing for, tap earners, you know, wasn't a lot of money. And I remember people telling me when I was at Morton, you know, the Liverpool players are getting 350, 400 quid a week. I remember thinking, that's phenomenal money. You know, 350, 400 quid a week. Jesus, what? You know, I remember Frank McGarvey going to Liverpool. I think he was getting about 400 quid a week at that time, which was a few years after that, you know. So, you know, you look at it now and it bears no resemblance. There's no comparison to it. Guys can play for one good season now and be a millionaire 2 or 3 times out of one good season. You know, and some of the guys out with the club, other than if you supported them, you wouldn't really know their names.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part of it. You know, somebody doing it Sheffield Wednesday or Sheffield United or something like that, getting 50 or 60,000 pound a week. And you guys are football men. They probably throw a name at you and you wouldn't know. You need to go and Google it, you know, to find out who they were. But these guys were earning 15,000, 20,000 pound a year at that time, and that was just the norm.
So on this, I've included the NASL standings and right at the very bottom, because this is very interesting, because you've got New York at the top there, played 20 games and on 134 points. Okay, so I'll explain. It does explain here. It says 6 points are awarded for each win, none for a loss, while 1 bonus point is given for every goal scored up to a maximum of 3 goals or 3 per team per game. No bonus points are awarded for either an overtime goal or the team shootout goal. So there's a lot to digest there, but basically you get a lot more points in those leagues back there. 134 points. In fact, Seattle have got 160 points from 22 games.
Relegated.
Yeah. So it's, you know, they obviously were trying different things back then.
Wanted goals. They wouldn't allow any at that time draws. So what they used to have was a run from the halfway line and the shootout to beat the goalkeeper. He had so many seconds to do it, you know. I thought that would be novel for me, running to the halfway line to try and score a goal. I've never done that in my puff before. And you had so many seconds to beat the goalkeeper. They didn't want any draws. They wanted plenty of goals. They wanted plenty of cheering. Defenders weren't high in their list of people that they brought in, even although, you know, they were great defenders all over Europe. Beckenbauer was the only one, and he ended up playing nearly a centre forward at New York at that time. Goals were the main thing. Entertainment, get people cheering. A wee bit like Morton in their heyday.
And also on that page there, again, they send you questions to ask the expert, and just again talking about the contrast to the present day. This is all pretty much information that you can absolutely find at your fingertips right now. Can you tell me the goals that Alfredo Di Stefano scored in the finals of the European Cup? And there's a wee bit there, somebody asking Bobby Charlton, how many internationals, how many goals for England. George Best scored 8 goals in his 42 league games for Fulham. So all great wee snippets of information at the time, and Shoot would have been one of the few places that you could find wee sort of nuggets like this. But again, like I say, this is absolutely at your fingertips now. But it's just interesting, what club is going through a league season using the least number of players? And at that time, it says Liverpool, and winning the league title in 65-66, used just 14 men for their 42 games. And it mentions
magazine is the type of magazine, Tom, that you read from front to back. You didn't do it all in one day. You went back to it again, you went back to it again, you picked it up again, you would take it, you read it back to front, because even if it didn't bear any comparison to what you were doing in your leagues, it was information. And anybody that loves football loves information.
So, Andy Smith, will we jump now to the focus on?
Yes. Okay, so let's... So we're jumping out of the magazine, Andy, and we're going to do a focus. I don't know if you've ever done a focus on before in any of the magazines, but I'm sure you've done questionnaires and things like that. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and just give us your answers. So, full name?
Andrew Ritchie. My mother still calls me that. She's 93 years of age.
Brilliant.
I know.
Birthplace?
I was born in Bellsall, Lanarkshire. The metropolis. Right.
Was that a hospital?
Yes. Right. Everybody was born out there. The Lanarkshire area, everybody was born at Bellsall Maternity. It was affectionately known as Swell Hotel.
Yeah. I think we found out we were born in the same place, didn't we?
The Redlands.
Redlands, yeah, up nearby, off Byers Road it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was, yeah.
Okay, Andy, first car. What was your first car?
Oh, Ford Cortina 1300.
Okay, you remember the colour?
It was a dark blue LYS 633E.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with your memory then, is there?
No. What day is it?
Aye. Who's your favourite player of all time?
Oh, good question. I've been asked a few times. My favourite player. My favourite footballer was Jimmy Johnson, without a shadow of a doubt. And I don't come from a Celtic background in any manner of means, but I've based that on my early years of being round about Celtic Park. And it will not be wrong for me to say I probably didn't see the best years of Jimmy Johnson. But Jimmy Johnson was one of these people to me that could have played in goals or could have played at centre half. And I know that sounds ridiculous. Could have played at right full-back and he'd been a success. He just had football right through the core of his whole body. And magnificent skill. Absolutely magnificent. Could do anything. And he was cocky and he was bright and he had full of confidence and he was brave. Nothing ever fazed him on the football park. Plenty of things fazed him off it, but nothing ever fazed wee Jimmy on it. He was just magnificent. I remember my first reserve team game. Went to Arbroath to play Celtic reserves, and it was at the time when Celtic reserves played on a Saturday at 3 o'clock kick-off when the first team were at Celtic Park. Unusual in itself now. And we travelled up, and there was me and a fella called Brian McLaughlin who played with me at that time. Brian was a couple of years older than me, but he'd played in the first team and what have you at a very young age. And we went up and we played the game, and Jimmy was back in the reserves. I think he'd fell out with a big joke again. And he played the game that day, and I'll never forget it. A beautiful summer's day. It was early in the season, and he was magnificent. He did everything. He had both fullback Cammy Murray. Cammy didn't know whether his backside was bored or screwed. He had no idea. Jimmy tormented him. And me and Brian McLaughlin, all the way from Arbroath to Kerrydale Street. And this is before motorways and all this carry on, so it was a fair old journey. We spoke all the way down that day after the game about what wee Jimmy did during that game. Brian was saying, well, what about when he done this, Andy? And what about when he caught the ball there? And all the way down, kept going back on it again. Jimmy was just a magician, an absolute magician. I would love to have seen him at his absolute peak. 65, 66, 67, 68, the 4 year. I'd love to have seen him. I'd love to have been run about him, to be run about the place and just watch that. A magician.
Brilliant. You've already mentioned this. Who's your favourite team?
When I was growing up,
Well, give us growing up and now.
growing up, Motherwell. Motherwell's always been my team.
Mm-hmm.
My dad took me there as a wee boy to watch Wally McCallum, Bobby McCallum, Alan Wiley. Big guy I was lucky enough to play with down at Morton. Probably one of the best reasons for it to go to Morton, and I never even noticed it. Big Johnny Goldthorpe, absolute hero out at Motherwell in mine, you know. Goldie was a smashing football player and a great guy. So Motherwell was my team. My dad used to, you'll not believe this, my dad used to take me there and lift me over the turnstile. And I wasn't a wee boy by any man that I means, you know. We were a pack of odd fellas stunning in the terracing. The only time I'd come up, I'd stand down at the wall and then I'd run back up again. My dad would give me an odd fella and I'd take it down, I'd eat it, hanging over the wall watching Mull, and I'd go back up to get another odd fella. I only gave you them out one at a time. You hadn't to be greedy. And I watched all Motherwell's games for I'd be about 8 or 9 till about 12 or 13. So Motherwell's my team. I'm never at my happiest when I'm watching Motherwell and watching them win.
Brilliant. Okay, what's been the most memorable match? So this can be either one you've played in or one you've watched.
I was going to say bring it up to date, but it's not up to date. One of the most exciting games I've seen in a long, long time was at Fir Park. Motherwell, let me take it right now. Motherwell managed by Craig Brown. Hibs managed by John Yogi Hughes. So you put the year onto that. I don't know what year it was. I know where to watch the game. And the game finished 4 each. I think Hibs had to win or something to get a European place. I can't remember the background to it. I was working down in England. I'd come up for the game. I wasn't watching anybody. I was just watching the game. And it was absolutely fantastic. It's the best Premier League football game I've ever seen. End-to-end stuff. A big foreign player from Motherwell scored a Van Basten goal at the back post to give Motherwell a 4 each draw. I can't remember his name, but I remember coming out of that game and I hadn't been like that for a long, long time, buzzing about the game, about the actual stuff that was played and performed that day and the quality of the football. It was just all round a magic game. That's the best game I'd seen for a long, long time. Really enjoyed it. As I say, end-to-end stuff. Brilliant stuff. If the Premier League was made up of that, with the 50,000 in every ground, every game, every week.
You mentioned Craig Brown there. I understand at one point he was your assistant head teacher. Is that right?
He was my teacher, my primary school teacher, but he had just finished up football and they had came out to Belvedere. And at that time, there weren't very many male teachers in primary schools at that time. And I remember to try and our headmaster, funny enough, her name was Miss Brown, to encourage Craig to come and be at Bellsall and work at Bellsall shop. She gave him the assistant head teacher's post to get him there because he was the only male teacher in the school. Right. And I was in the last class at that school, so he was given the last class. Well, it would suffice to say, I got a prize at the end of that year that I spent with Craig Brown in the classroom. And I'd never had a prize for anything in my life before at school. So he must have been bloody good at that being a headmaster. Well, he told me often that he was good at being a headmaster, you know, but he's not shy by any manner of means. Okay. But he introduced me to the football team as well. And I enjoyed that. I was quite a big boy at school. I didn't miss many of my mother's dinners. So, you know, I was a big boy and I could kick the ball. And Craig liked that, you know. I could score for 25 yards or the wee goalkeeper into the great big goals. So. And I remember, not that you dream about being a football player at that time, but I tell you what, he cut a fine dash. He was a good-looking young man, if my memory serves me correct. Crew-cut hair, always dressed immaculately. Was always immaculately dressed. You know, you could have cut your hand in his shirt collar. He was one of the guys. Check jackets, expensive shoes. And he would tell us about his football career. And I remember that was the first time I remember thinking, that would be great. That would be great. Imagine playing football and getting money for it and the crowds cheering you. And I remember thinking like that. I was only about 11 at the time. When I left to go to the academy after that, he said to me to stick in at the football. And he'd also suggested to my mother that my mother take me to, here you go, my mother take me to Highland dancing classes. It improves your footwork and everything else, and he'll need that if he's a big boy and he wants to play football. Yeah, that was a focus of fun in my house at that time. That suggestion, but when you look at it now, it's the kind of thing that one of these modern day coaches would suggest to somebody, and that was a way back in 56, 66, 67. 1967, he was suggesting that to my mother. You know, he loved his football.
Yeah.
And he was a good teacher as well. He was for me.
But we had them on the podcast before, and it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant to talk to.
I love my time that I spend with him, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a mine of information, and he's well worth listening to. And spend an hour with the old fella like that.
Yeah.
I tell them football managers are all winging it anyway. They've no idea what they're going to do next. All the ones that I've worked for have no idea, and we automatically transfer and think that the manager of your football team knows everything.
Yeah.
They don't. They go home at night time and they hold their head in their horns at the same as a football supporter and think, what the hell am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
And he argues that one out. No, they're always meticulously planned. Everything's organised. That's the kind of man he is. Great guy, I love him. He's brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, next question. What's been your biggest thrill? So we'll leave it with football. So what's been your biggest thrill in the game?
Biggest thrill in the game? That's a good question. What gave me the most enjoyment? As a young boy signing for Celtic, I never thought I would signing full time with Celtic. I never ever thought I would achieve that. There was a lot of self-doubt in me as a young boy because of situations. So I remember the day that I got offered terms to go in and sign, and my dad took me in. I was only 15, 16. And I remember being really excited about it. My dad wasn't really excited about it. He was a Motherwell supporter. He couldn't have gave diddly squat about Celtic, to be honest with you. But I remember being excited that somebody thought I was good enough to be able to sign a contract, to sign forms with a football club. In the football terms, the biggest or the most exciting thing was winning the First Division Championship with Morton. That was just, that was great at that time. And I remember being really excited about it all, because that whole season people had said, no, Dundee and Hearts, two big clubs, full-time clubs with plenty of money and everything, they'll win the league. Morton will drift away. They always do. They have 8 or 9 good games and then they drift away. They'll not win it, And to go on through the full season like that, the way we did, with a very, very small squad of players, good players, but small squad, and achieve that and win the title in front of Dundee and Hearts, who had just come down for the Premier League, was really massive for me. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the achievement, and so did all the rest of the players at that time. Everybody realised what a great job we'd done that season. And personally, it was good as well, because I scored a few goals.
Yeah. Okay, on the flip side of that, what's been your biggest disappointment in the game?
Probably no moving after my second season at Morton. And I tried hard enough, and I spoke about it enough, and God, Christoph, 40 years later, I'm still talking about it, I would love to have moved the caravan, for the want of a better phrase, on at that time.
Yeah.
Get back full time again, back to a decent club that were looking to do things and take on the next challenge. I hung a bit too long. That was my problem. But as I said, that wasn't by choice.
Yeah.
But if that had happened after the second season, I think I'd been able to have accommodated that, move my season on and maybe played for a bit longer in the game.
Right. What's the best country that you've visited?
Best country? Place I enjoy most is Italy. I love, going to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Travelled about a fair bit in the job that I did in scouting over the years. And it was always a joy, when I had jobs to do in Italy. I like the people, I like the lifestyle, I like the way they go about things. Class, the football's class as well, The football players are class. You just need to walk a leg of beach in Italy and it's class, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't see many like that in Largs on a Tuesday morning. It's just quality, all round quality, and they like that and everything that they do.
Yeah.
So Italy, and any holiday I've ever had in Italy, and I've had many, I really enjoyed. And I've got many Italian friends, so that helps as well.
Well, let's see if the next question's related. Favourite food?
Italian.
Yeah.
I like Italian. My diet's not particularly great now. Struggle a wee bit like that. So I always enjoyed the Italian food. It's never great on other foods, but I enjoyed the Italian stuff. And you can't beat a glass of red wine, can you?
No, absolutely not. I'm with you on everything about Italy as well. I absolutely adore Italy. Miscellaneous likes. So give me 2 things that you like to do.
2 things I like to do. I love to go horse racing. I'm mad keen on horse racing. I've always been like that for years and years. I love the horses. I love that sport. It's my second favourite sport without a shadow of a doubt. I love when the wee guy takes the big guy on in it. I love that. Really. I fully that through it. In fact, one of the guys I'm on Twitter now, Dr. Jim Walker, who's now become a good friend, he'll be coming down to visit us. He's a Greenokian. He lives in Hong Kong, and he's one of the main economists there. Obviously done very well for himself, and he bought a wee horse for 35,000. And he put it into Mark Johnson's yard 2 years ago. The first time it ran, I watched it running. It should have won that day, and I followed it ever since. He won the Ascot Gold Cup there 3 weeks ago with a horse called Subjectivist. And he won a Group 1 in France there this year. And he's won about 2 or 3 other group races as well. And the horse has made a fortune for him. And he's taking on the big guys. He's taking on the big Arabs and everybody else that goes along with all the big stables. And that's what I like. I like that. I like to follow something through like that. Not always successful, but yeah, I like to see the wee guy winning in that game.
Okay. On the flip side again, a couple of things that you dislike. Drive you up the wall.
Drive me up the wall. Looking traffic wardens, they drive me up the wall. I don't seem to have much luck with traffic wardens and things like that. Maybe I should park in the right places, But really, I'm getting to the stage in my life now where no many things like that bug me, Andy. You'll get there in 40 years' time, you're my age, I don't let them bother me anymore now. What I really don't like is, I don't like ungenuine people in football. They bug me off. People who have set their own agendas and think the game was invented for them and everything else is revolving around about them. I'm not too keen on that. They've not really discovered the fact that in football you tell people what they need to know, not what they want to know or want to hear. So that bugs me from time to time, and if I don't see enough happening, I don't see enough change in the game, I get a wee bit frustrated with it. But all in all, I don't really get, I don't go off in one anymore now. Right. The days are long since past. Thank God for that.
Fair enough.
It's not really, I'm not really pissed off with much now in my life.
No, good to hear. Okay, next one. Favourite TV show of all time?
Cheers.
Brilliant. Great answer. Tom knows that. That's
a lot, eh?
Yeah. Just perfect. Absolutely perfect in every way. Every episode. And I've watched, I've got to say every one. I'll maybe give myself. I've watched everything in it. I've now got to the stage where I'm looking for things that might not be right in it. I spend time now trying to find something that I don't like, either it be a character or, a situation, or maybe they've stretched that situation just a wee bit too far. It's no natural life anymore. That just shows you, it's sad, but there you go. But I've never found anything that compares to it on television. No. A lot of good shows and everything else, but nothing compares to Cheers.
Yeah, totally with you on that. It's one of my favourite all time as well. And see, when you mentioned in there, trying to find probably the character that was the closest is Diane, but she's meant to be like that, and it's done really well. She's a bit sort of just the way about her, but that's her character, and it just makes the whole situation. So it's a character I probably should dislike, but you don't, because it's just played so well and it's scripted so well, and they all work together so well.
Can't dislike any of them.
No.
You just can't find fault with any of them, The old coach used to bug me every so often, but that's an American coach. That's it. Just everything about it's perfect. And it's the fulcrum is the barman. No doubt about that. Everything revolving round about Big Sam Malone like that. And his whole life revolving round about the place.
Yeah,
I used to be like that myself when I drank. My whole life revolved around about a pub.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Favourite singers. So you can have a couple of singers who you really like.
Favourite singers. I've got that many. I'm a music buff. God bless this internet for music. When I go into WhatsApp and all these things, I can get any music I want.
Yeah.
One of my favourite singers, one I'm right into now, and I wasn't at the very start, is George Michael. I think George Michael was a genius, absolute genius.
Yep.
And I didn't like him up till about 8 or 9 years ago. And he probably sneaked to the top of the tree. I actually met him once.
Right.
I rented out property in London. And I rented out to this guy. And he'd just come over. He was studying in the city of London. And the guy had fallen a few weeks behind in his rent. And I asked him about it, and he said he would get his family, somebody was coming in and what have you. But I never seemed to catch him in. He was always a young boy. I thought, I'll need to get this sorted out. So I'll try to play it heavy. So I put the real heavy Scottish accent on, You need to get this rent money paid for me. See if you're not got this rent money paid for me by Friday, I'm going to bounce you right out the door, The Robbie Coltrane accent. Used to work down there in London. And he did. He said one of his family would be along. It was something like 300 quid or something, way back in the 80s. I said, you get it up to date and you don't let it go again, or you're out the door. I was in the office and I was sitting in the office, and the lassie at front reception said to me, Andy, there's somebody here. And I went out. And it was George Michael standing at the door with this minder driver guy. The wee fella who had been renting my property was a wee fella called Michael Paniatu, who was part of the family who they'd come over to London to study. And he came over with a wee bit of money, but he got involved in London, enjoyed the nightlife, spent it in drink and everything else, and forgot to pay his rent. Anyway, George Michael came into my back office that day to pay me in cash. And he paid me in cash. And I'll never forget looking at the guy. He was perfect in every way, his hair was perfect, his skin was perfect, he had this skinny beard on and that, his teeth were perfect, everything. And I'll never ever forget the smell of his aftershave was absolutely overpowering. It was brilliant. And he sat there and we had a blather for half an hour and he explained to me about the boy, and I'd say to him what had happened, and we spoke, and he was a real nice fella. And he said to me, and I tell the boy, that Michael boy, you need to be in here before 7 o'clock because I go for a pint on a Friday night. And if you annoy you, the fact that I'm getting... He paid the rent money up, right? He paid it in cash. He said, if any problems, he says, you let Michael, let me know and I'll come back. And he put two £20 notes down on the end of the table. And he said, and young Michael said, you go for a beer. Have a beer on me. And thanks very much for being as understanding. That was the first time. And I remember thinking, and I hated all that wham stuff, all that wake me up before you go and all that. And about 10 years ago, I got back into his music again. And it's absolutely brilliant. I think he's my number one singer of all time. And I remember thinking, seeing that office of mine's smelled of that aftershave for about 3 weeks after it. Every time I walked in, or anybody else came in, they went, well, that's lovely aftershave you've got on, Andy, He was a real nice fella for that half hour. Got everything sorted out. And he looked, well, $1 million. And that's not a lot of money, $1 million at that time. And his music, anybody likes music, stick it back on again and have a listen.
Listen, you've got me again with George Michael. Faith, Listen Without Prejudice, all those, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I quite like the Wham stuff as well. So
I went to a concert. It was a concert for when I was in London. Helen McCartney, when she had passed away, Paul McCartney put a concert on in her memory, and we went with pal of mine had got tickets. He had restaurants in London. We went there to watch the concert, and George Michael came on and sung that night. in the concert for Helen McCartney, and he sung The Long and Winding Road, Paul McCartney's song. He asked if he could sing it before he came on, and he did. If you can get it on the internet, stick it on. Absolutely fantastic. And I don't like cover versions of songs. But that's the best cover version I've ever heard of any song. George Michael that night at the Royal Albert Hall, Helen McCartney, and that's the best cover version I've heard of any.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, who's your best friend, Andy?
That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that, Like this, nobody's ever asked, who would be my best friend? That's a good one. Who would be my best friend? My son's sitting at the back of me. That's unbelievable, isn't it? Well, obviously my sons are, they are my best friends. They see good, bad and indifferent, and they put up with me for the want of a better phrase as well. I've got a lot of friends. I've got a lot of people that I know. I'm lucky that way. I think I've been a bit blessed that way, and I tend to hold friendships.
Yeah. I'm
getting to a stage in my life now where, unfortunately, a lot of people not round about us anymore now, But they'd be good. I wouldn't like to say one person, because that would be unkind.
Yeah.
Be unkind to everybody else, and be unkind to them to think that they were a friend of mine.
Yeah. No, listen, it's like
my family. There you go.
Brilliant.
My two sons would be like that. They are my best pals now, without any shadow of a doubt.
Excellent.
Got a lot of friends, but they are my best pals now.
Good man. Brilliant. Who's been your biggest influence?
The biggest influence? I don't know.
No.
I would struggle. There's been that many right across all the broad sections of my life, at certain times in my life I've had massive influences, and then when you move out of that section of your life, you move into something else, that's the way it seems to have worked for me. So I think you say all the way through. Probably again my family, my mother and father, Mum's still here at 93 years of age.
Brilliant.
She's a diamond. She said to me this morning, I don't think I'll go to my work today. 93, she's got a wee bit of dementia there.
Right.
And she really meant it, I think I'll not go to my work today, I'll have a day off. And my dad was the same as well.
Right.
Hard-working people put everything into what they were doing for their family and everything else. Very little existed outside our own family house in Warnock Crescent. We had other members of the family.
Yeah.
Everything revolved around about what happened in there and what was on there. We're always, I mentioned it earlier on, my dad wasn't a Celtic supporter, so he never encouraged me to go there and, do the old Celtic or Rangers bit or anything like that, But I think at that time he was proud of the fact that you were achieving something. And he was the same with every member of his family. Everybody achieved something, my dad was proud of him. So my mother and father.
Brilliant. Okay. Final question. Which person in the world would you most like to meet?
That many of them. You shouldn't ask people who are 65 years of age these kind of questions, It takes you down roads that you maybe don't want to be on. Who would I most like to meet?
We'll open it up, Andy. Living or dead?
I know. I'm thinking about both like that. That many of them. Andy, there really is like that, You think about it and you think to yourself, I'd love to meet them again,
Okay, listen, brilliant, great answers throughout that.
No bother.
So I've put together a few articles and photos and stuff just from various points in your career, Andy. So we'll just look through a few of those. So this first one is from Shoot magazine on the 3rd of April 1976, and it's Tartan Talk by Kenny Dalglish, and I've just picked out a bit where he talks about you. So Kenny says, so if I must single out a young player at Parkhead, it has got to be Andy Ritchie. At 17, one of the brightest prospects on the Scottish scene. Andy, who's busily studying O-level examinations at school, has a tremendous temperament. After all, how many 17-year-olds could manage to cope with a career in the classroom and an apprenticeship in football without batting an eyelid? Andy has the vital ingredients necessary to make a success of the centre-half spot. He's good in the air and on the ground, and most importantly, he has an excellent turn of speed, which enables him to chase back quickly to retrieve any loose balls. That's some accolade there from Kenny Dalglish, isn't it?
I don't know what happened to that fella. He had some turn of speed, he was good in the air. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Kenny was getting me mixed up with somebody else at that time. It came out Andy Ritchie, you know. Right, well, there you go. I signed for Celtic as a centre half, and I lasted about 4 or 5 games, and then they discovered that I couldn't header the ball, I couldn't tackle, and I couldn't run, and I was a bit of a coward. So Big Jock said to me about it, he says that because you come from Bellshill and they thought you would replace Big Billy McNeil, who came from Bellshill.
Yeah.
He says, you'll never play there again, and I never.
No.
I went to Celtic Boys Club as a centre forward after that, or a striker, or whatever you want to call him. But I signed as a centre half, I think, as I say, because I was 6 foot at 15 years of age, you know, that helped a wee bit. But I remember Kenny doing that regular spot in the Shoot magazine. Oh, there's a good photo there.
Yeah, so this is from Tiger from 1976 again. So I'll just zoom in a bit there so we can. So want to talk through that a wee bit?
Yeah, I'm just looking through some of them. They're Alistair Hunter, as I spoke about. Dennis Conahan, I played with Morton for a wee while as well.
Yep.
A slim-looking big Latchie there before he discovered pie and beans. Some smashing players amongst them. They're big. You know, I'm just looking there again, and some of the boys aren't here anymore. Now it's just when I see Paddy down in the corner, Pat McCluskey. Yeah. Harry and Paul. Yeah. Johannes Edvardsson, you know, passed away there not that long ago. They were a good side. It was hard to get into that team as well because they had all been experienced right through the reserves and everything else. That team, Celtic were changing, trying to bring in more younger players. See Jackie Mack Senior there as well. And we're all wearing the style of matchmaker boots. I know you're looking at these feet today. I remember we get £250 each a season for wearing them.
Right.
We got paid. Celtic won the 9 in a row, and they took us on an end of season trip to Jersey. We played at Portsmouth, helped them in a game, and then went out to Jersey. And we all got £250 earlier in Jersey in cash for wearing the boots. They were the most uncomfortable boots you've ever had in your whole life.
Yeah.
Absolutely hopeless. In fact, see Kipper Lynch there. Kipper Lynch hasn't got the boots on. He's got Adidas boots, but he's tried to put the white stripe on paint down the side of them. See that?
Yeah.
And Danny didn't wear them as well. Danny wore Adidas all the time. Everybody else. Even Kenny's got a pair, it looks like Puma.
Yeah.
But he painted down the side of them to make it look.
Yeah. I think I saw that there's an advert for Stylo boots which has the Celtic. It's not this team photo, but it's another team photo, and because Kenny was the only one that didn't wear them, there was actually a physio bag or something in front of him.
Aye, that's right.
So
Kenny moved. I got a deal with Puma the same year. Kenny got a deal with Puma down in England, and they brought out Kenny Dalglish Pumas down there, and they brought out a boot. I don't think they sell that many of them. Andy Ritchie Puma. It was the same year we won the first. Kenny won it in England, and I won it your magazine up in Scotland. It was that year I got a deal with Puma after that.
Yeah. And
I remember when I went to Motherwell, signed for Motherwell, I had to scrap that because they had a deal that everybody at the club had to wear. The worst football boot you've ever put on in your whole life. It was like wearing a club foot. Patrick, they were called.
Yeah.
However the hell Patrick was, they should have taken him out the back and shot him. The boots were absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
And I had to gear back up the Puma deal because I'd signed for Motherwell at that time. But at that time, Celtic wore them. You know, the style, and I think they had them for about 4 years.
Mm.
There's the great Hugh Taylor.
Hugh Taylor. So this is from the Scottish Football Book in 1979. It's you receiving the Writers Player of the Year award, I think it was, for that year.
That's right. Hugh was the chairman of the Scottish Sports Writers that year.
Mm.
Many's a good afternoon I spent with Hugh Taylor. It was good company.
And there we go. There's
that's a Shoot magazine picture.
Yep. So that's you getting the Shoot Scottish Most Exciting Player of the Year presented by Benny Rooney.
That's right.
Yep.
Kenny got his at the big Anfield sign outside Anfield. I think it was Bob Paisley presenting him.
Yeah.
And the two of them had their casual gear on, and Morton made me wear that bloody strip. Look at it. You know, for to get a picture like that taken for Shoot magazine,
Whereas on the other side, Kenny's was done. I think they were in the casual gear. It looked that stupid.
So I was going to ask, do you get to keep, or did you get to keep the trophy, and do you still have it?
Yeah, you got to keep the trophy. It was inscribed on the front. I can't remember where that trophy went to. I more or less gave away all my stuff and got off the end, and it was like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you said to me, "Have you got that now?" I'd say no, obviously. I don't know where it went to, but it was inscribed at the front, and everybody got different every year, you know.
I'm taking this would have ended up on the Morton dressing room wall as well then, this photograph.
Yeah. Aye, it was that ridiculous. You know, I had to go away and put a football strip on, and everybody else was able to stand there with a suit and collar and tie on, you know. I remember thinking it looked stupid at that time. God, they're an ugly bunch, that mob, aren't they?
Yeah, so this is from 79. This is a Morton team group, and yeah, it's a big team group as well. It's a big squad, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a big squad the year before, but this was included. This was all the reserve team and everybody else at that time. It was to make us look as if we had a big squad, you know.
Right.
The front row and 3 or 4 at the back. Tomo had come in, Bobby Russell. Bainsy was back by that time, George Anderson. So that was the Morton Football Club encapsulated in that one picture. And we signed a few because we were going up to the Premier League that year. So before, I think we had about 14 players. Yeah.
There's a couple of suspect perms going on there with Neil Orr and
ones.
Jim Colmy as well.
You mean better give Big Ali Scott one, wouldn't you? God, that's a topper. The Bald Eagle was gone by that time.
Yeah.
Bobby Charlton couldn't even have covered that head up with the hair. But there was, Tommy had a dodgy one, and Neely had one.
Yeah.
And John McNeil had one. Bobby Russell had one.
You had one yourself at one point, didn't you?
Aye. Oh, aye. I got it done about 77. But everybody was getting them done then, you know.
Yeah.
And I kept it for a while. I kept it to get crazy. In fact, I ended up with wee Tommy's. And I got it all. Well, I'd love it now, right enough, you know. I do a wee bit more with it now. Yeah. But that was the fashion.
Yeah. So we're moving on to the Panini Morton page from 1984. And here we go. Andy Ritchie down the bottom there with a more well-kempt haircut going on with that one. A bit of a middle shed, I think, going on as well, maybe. Yeah.
No, there's a wee bit of pull back there, isn't there? A wee bit of gel. Do you spot a wee bit of gel as well?
Yeah.
These Panini things were big at that time, eh?
Oh, aye.
Moved to London, and my boys were relatively young at that time, and I lived in London, just about 100 yards along the road for the Panini office,
right,
High Street in Islington. And these were hard to get. You get plenty of them, but you could never get the whole team. And the boys used to be able to get in. He's sitting laughing in the chair there. They were able to get into the Panini office when I was bringing them back to school, and they would give them the ones to make up their collection in the office, in the Panini office. So, you know, they were the ones you swapped. I'll give you 5 of Ian McLeod for 1 of Andy Ritchie, you know, that kind of stuff. The boys didn't need to do that. So they had their Panini books because we lived right across from the Panini office, and the lassies were very kind to us. Good pictures there. Good boys, good looking boys at Motherwell.
Aye.
Yeah, so big Johannes Edwardson. I followed Johannes at Motherwell when Johannes had came back from Hanover to Motherwell, and then he moved again, and I took Johannes' spot out at Motherwell that season.
I'm assuming Ian McLeod is Murdo's brother. Is he Murdo's? Because he looks like him.
No, he looks like him, doesn't he?
Aye. Is he not related?
No, he comes from Edinburgh originally. Motherwell signed him for Falkirk. Real nice guy. Ian McLeod, left fullback. He does look a bit like Murdo. I can't remember Murdo's brother's name now. That's terrible, isn't it? No, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Hughie Sproat was a character. Big Joe Carson. Big Joe played up at Arbroath. And Raf. I see a bit of Raf and Gagey.
Right. Aye. John Gagan is an absolute pleasure to be in his company. He did the Clydebank dinner dance thing. The dinner dance. There was no dancing. I know what I'm talking about. The Clydebank dinner the other year, and it was just absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was known as a nervous winger out at Motherwell.
Yeah.
You know, Gagey could panic when the ball wasn't anywhere near him, you know. And he gives me that impression when he's up there on stage doing that stuff now, you know. You actually feel a wee bit uncomfortable for him at the start because but that's just all part of it. He uses that, and he's and I was going to say actor, you know, and he's speaking when he does that, you know. It comes across to you that he is a wee bit nervous, but he's not really.
Yeah, Ali Mauchline, who you mentioned earlier on in there as well, with
that's right,
quite a modern haircut.
He's in that Morton picture. Ali Mauchline's brother was in that as well. Stuart Mauchline, who had signed for.
Which one? In this one?
He's standing in between. He's to the left of Ali Scott.
All right, yeah.
That was Ali Mauchline's brother, Stuart. He played for a season and a bit down at Capello Ways as well. Yeah, Jock Wallace, I think, signed Ali Mauchline and Gary McAllister for Leicester City. Gary's still there. He's an ambassador of the club down there at Leicester now. I've seen him a few times when I was down watching their games. Still lives in that area. Yeah. And Raff's the SFA man for Greenock.
Right.
Stuart Rafferty. Nice fella as well. Horrible strip, that Mallow strip, isn't it?
Yeah, they've had better ones.
They have.
Yeah. So after this, you had... so I'll read this. Andy's open for offers. So this is from Match Magazine 1984. And it says, Andy Ritchie has joined Clydebank on a month contract after rejecting an offer from FA Cup killers Blackpool, giant killers Blackpool. But the big man's long-term future remains uncertain. He said, I will be playing for Clydebank for a few weeks. After that, I just don't know what will happen. I want to stay in the game if I can and hope to do a good job for the club. If that can interest a few other sides, then so much the better. I could have signed for Blackpool. I spent a few days at Bloomfield sampling their setup, but they only offered a contract to the end of the season. Obviously, with the hassle of moving my wife and kids to Blackpool, I wanted a longer commitment. Andy's talents will clearly be an asset to Clydebank in their bid to win promotion to the Premier League. But for Andy, the next few weeks gives him the chance to show any interested parties that the magic which won him Scotland's Player of the Year award in 1979 is still on tap. So, I mean, you've spoken to Tom before, so you're aware that we are Clydebank supporters, so... This is what we've been building this whole show up to, is just this one little article. So
I think most of their games postponed for the weather. That time you were at Clydebank, Andy, I think you only managed to play twice or something.
Well, it started. It says that I'd be hoping to go back and show my skills again and that. See, to be honest with you, my career was finished at that time. It was gone, and I knew that. You know, I was trying desperately for to hang my hat on something, or some bolt of lightning throughout the sky would turn it round about, you know. And I got a phone call from Jack Steedman. You know, I didn't really know Jack Steedman particularly well, but I'd heard of him. And he invited me down to Kilbowie Park. Kilbowie, I couldn't remember the name of it there, to speak to him about coming in. And he had a look at me and he could see that I was out of shape and everything else, you know. But he wanted to do something, so he sorted out a deal. He said, we'll trial it for a month. And I thought, I'm not doing anything else anyway. So I asked him for a lot of money. Well, a lot of money, Clydebank terms. He wasn't too sure about it. I said, well, I'm not coming for the month then. And he eventually agreed to it. So we signed the contract. It was a Tuesday. And we were supposed to play Ayr United on the Wednesday at Kilbowie. And I got up on the Wednesday morning, there was 5 or 6 inches of snow outside my front window. And all the games were cancelled for a month. So when the games get back on again, that Ayr United Cup tie had to be played. Alan McNally was playing with Ayr United. That's how I remember that game. And my contract was up on the Tuesday. The game was on the Wednesday. So Jack came in and said, you know, we'll get everything sorted. If you just sign this contract, I'll register it for another month. I said, you'll only register it for another month if you give me another month's money. But I've paid you and you've not played any games. No, this is started. I said, I don't care. I was available for them. The games were off. That contract's out. You need to sign another one. He says to me, what I'll do then is I'll organise it and have the money sorted out and you go and play the game. I said, right, you have the money sorted out, that'll be fine. Anyway, I went and down to the park for the game on the Wednesday night and Jack appeared. He said, I'll sort your money out after the game. So I played the game. I went in. He said to me, no, we don't want you to come back. Don't bother. So I played the game for Clydebank, probably their best paid player ever, for 4 weeks' wages, one game. I only played one game for Clydebank. I think Ayr United beat us that night. And see, to be honest with you, I couldn't have cared less anyway. But that was Jack Steedman, I think, He says, hey, we'll sign for another. And he obviously watched me play that night and thought, nah, I'm not paying any more money for him. Yeah. And that finished my very, very short career at Kilbowie. Great games against Clydebank when I was at Morton, right enough. We always had some spankers. Some absolutely great places. In fact, Mark McGee got his move to Newcastle United on a performance at Kilbowie one night when he destroyed Clydebank himself. Newcastle signed him the week after that. You had some good players in there.
Yeah, we did, aye. I think Mike Larnock got the move to Newcastle just at the same time as Mark McGee went, and obviously with Davy Cooper.
That's right.
And then going on Tommy Coyne, Bobby Williamson, guys like that. Aye. Jack Steedman knew
Jerry McCabe was a smashing player for Clydebank. Smashing football player. In fact, my first ever game for Morton was against Clydebank at Capello on a miserable Wednesday night. The Coop played that night as well. The other big boy played up front with Mike Larner, Blair Miller. He was a talented boy, but unorthodox football player. But he was effective. He was strong. He could score a goal. He was a football player to Mike Larnock, the runner. Instead of Newcastle signing either Andy Ritchie and Mark McGee or Blair Miller and Mike Larnock, they come up with this smart arse idea that they would do a mix and match and took Mike Larnock and Mark McGee, and they never played together at Newcastle. That was the thinking of it all. But they had some smashing players. Jim Fallon was a great player as well. Jim Fallon was too nice a guy to be a football player, especially a centre half when it was expected in those days that you gave out a couple of Saurians.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Jim did it, because he would earn more money in his physiotherapist role if he'd gave out a few yins, Yeah. A few right sore ones to people, and then he could have nursed them back to health again for a few quid. Jim Fallon's a lovely guy. He helped my family many, many years ago when he was a physiotherapist at a rehab centre in Uddingston, and he helped my brother who had a very, very serious car accident, and he helped him back to his feet again and helped with his rehabilitation for about 2 years after that. But even in the football, Jim Fallon was a nice guy. As I say, too nice to be a football player.
Yeah. So my football hero, Andy, is Jim Gallagher. So that's my hero of all time. So what any memories, Big Gal?
He was unorthodox, wasn't it? Big Jim would make saves out of absolutely nothing. He'd pull things out the back of the net, but you always thought he'd maybe give you a wee chance, He would maybe, not being disrespectful, he'd maybe miss time one, or he'd come at the wrong time or what have you. I always had that wee feeling off Jim. But it was a smashing big goalkeeper. How long was he there at Clydebank with you?
He was 72 he arrived, wasn't it? And so it must have been about
2 he left, aye.
Yeah,
did he get a testimonial?
He did, yeah.
Did he? Good. Because I knew he was there a long time, and he was very, very popular with the supporters. Just surprised living it. But we touched on it earlier on in the podcast, the amount of good goalkeepers that were flying about up here. That every club's goalkeeper was a big marker for clubs down in England, And you would have thought Jim would have been absolutely ideal for something like that. He wouldn't have been big money. He wasn't coming for the Rangers or Celtic. You were dealing with Jack Steedman, so similar to my own situation, maybe with Hal. Yeah. It might have been more beneficial for Jim to have got a bigger club out of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so just we're at Ritchie of the Rovers. So Andy Ritchie, the controversial former Scottish Footballer of the Year, so they're moving on a little bit here now, has taken his first steps towards a managerial career. Ritchie, who had a few games with Albion Rovers at the end of last season when the Coatbridge side finished bottom of the second division, has agreed to become their player coach. So you were speaking about this earlier on. Invited to do so by the club directors, the 28-year-old has accepted the challenge, and success will mean the manager's office.
That's a nice wee one, that, isn't it? It's a nice wee bit.
Yeah.
Doesn't typify the amount of shit that went on at Albion Rovers. It's quite a nice wee bit,
Yeah, it's full of hope, isn't it? It's full of hope.
It is, hope and expectation. If I didn't know better myself, I'd ask you, what happened to that guy over there at Albion Rovers? That looked quite nice.
Yeah.
What a shocking place to play your football. Absolutely shocking it was. And I had been caught at a right vulnerable time, I think. might have been on mind-altering substances as well if I hadn't known better. I took that job there at Albion Rovers, and it was unbelievable. The way the place was run and the way that chairman, Tommy Fagan, ran the place. And you never forget the first day I went in and I agreed to join the club as a player manager. And he says, right, your office is up the stairs. So I go way up the stairs into this corridor, and at the end of the corridor there's a door that says manager on it. Somebody had painted it on. So I open up the door and I go in, and I'm just looking, and there's a desk and a chair and a few drawers down the side, but the place is absolutely filthy. You wouldn't have put pigs in it. It was absolutely filthy. And I remember going there and sitting in the chair looking at the desk, and I open one of the drawers and it's all full of papers and that. So again, I'll put my hand on the papers, and then door opens and this guy walks in, old fella. I says, hello, how you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. I says, can I help you? He says, no, can I help you? He says, who are you? I says, I'm the new manager of the football club. I'm Andy Ritchie. I'm standing up to shake his hand thinking, yeah. He says, you're in my seat. He says, that's my seat and my table. He says, I'm the handicapper at the Dugs. He says, get out my fucking office. That was my introduction to Albion Rovers. I thought, when I looked through, we had only 7 signed players, and one of them was myself. And he told me he had 18 players and everything else. So it was an absolute disaster from start to finish. The only good thing that ever happened out of Albion Rovers for me was that I managed to encourage Bernie Slavin to come and join us. I'd known Bernie from Morton, and I knew exactly what he could do, Bernie Slavin. Bernie Slavin was the best finisher at Capello when I played down there. Bernie had 2 great feet. He had composure in round about the box. He could finish. He was the best finisher. He'd went and had a bad spell at Queen of the South, and he'd more or less wrapped again. And I went to his house to speak to him, spoke to his dad, and his dad said, Bernard will be there for you, he'll come back and play. And I signed him for a year. The old guy wasn't happy about, we don't want Slavin, he was hopeless, And Bernie Slavin came and played, and he finished the top player, top goal scorer in the country that year with Charlie Nicholas or something like that. And he got a move to Middlesbrough. He played the English top division. He played at World Cups. And Bernie's great claim to fame is he met the Pope, but everything else in football he achieved. He played international football and won things. So that was the biggest achievement for that nice wee part there that we see on the screen, about Albion Rovers. Yeah. I remember he got a case of champagne or something. And I was away by that time. I had moved to London, and my family were still living in Mount Vernon. And they got up one morning to pull the milk in from outside the door, and there was a bottle of champagne outside with Bernie on it. Excellent. Send that down to Andy, Nice guy. And he had a great career after that. But the rest of the boys were honest, hard-working. Bernie was great. Magic. I met Joe Baker. 2 great things that happened out of Albion Rovers. So I'll be forever grateful for these 2 things anyway.
Brilliant. That's superb. So there's this article just a little bit later on. I'm just going to read through it because there's another one which is related from it anyway. So this one says, waiters thrashed by unknowns. It says, a team of Spanish hotel waiters got more than they bargained for when they challenged the guests to a football match, because representing the holidaymakers was a team comprising no fewer than 8 professionals who turned the game into a rather one-sided one. Everton's Mike Lyons, Billy Wright and Gary Stanley, Ipswich trio Paul Cooper, Alan Hunter and Eric Gates, Man City youngster Tommy Caton, and Peterborough's former Ipswich winger Mike Lambert were the men who took part. The waiters, who boasted 1 or 2 useful players on their side, had no idea of the real identity of their opponents until it was too late. Within 20 minutes, the star guests were 6 goals ahead, even allowing for the fact goalkeeper Cooper played up front and Gates, normally a striker, took over in goal. Everton skipper Lyons said, we were playing in sandals and it was just a laugh. Even the waiters who fancied their chances a bit could see the funny side when they were let in on the secret. Now, when I read this, it reminded me of an article I saw, I think it's in 1969 it was. So this one is Scotland 20, England 0. So this one gets aged by the way they spell Kenny Dalglish. So they've got Dalglish. So this one, Scotland 20, England 0. That was the intriguing scoreline when holidaymakers from 2 countries clashed in an unofficial international on a Jersey beach last summer. And we can now reveal the secret behind the Scots' overwhelming victory. They had 2 men from Celtic and Rangers within their ranks. One of them was Celtic wing half Kenny Dalglish, and the other Rangers forward Alex Miller. Dalglish told the story of the Jersey massacre. We were there with a crowd of our mates, and some English lads challenged us to a Scotland versus England match. They put on a big act, giving the impression it was going to be easy, but what they didn't know that most of us were professionals. They were never in the game. Just about the only time they touched the ball was to re-centre it. We became popular with the other Scottish holiday makers, a big crowd cheering us on whenever we played. I love that, you know, just the whole cockiness of the local waiters and stuff. And they had no idea who they were up against. But I was sort of secretly clinging to the fact that maybe you would have been part of that, but I think it was just before your time.
Too early for me, that, Andy. That also as well makes me think of the situation of guys who, like the Dukla Pumferson games we used to play in. You know, you turn up. We went to Germany to play the British Army of the Rhine in Germany under the heading of Dukla Pumferson Sawmill and Tannery. And none of these army boys knew in at all. They hadn't a clue what it was. And we all turned up. Now, we're talking about, you know, Celtic, Rangers, former internationalists, you know, 1 or 2 circus acts like Chick Young and Rob McLean. But they were the make-up guys, you know. But we would get there and play. And we played the parachute regiment, had 9 players in that team. They were all physically fit and everything else, and other PE men. And they looked at us, you know, big pot bellies and trying to get out on the park. And we gave them a doing about 16-2 or something like that, and they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
John Blackley, John Brunley, Jimmy Bone, Gordon Smith, Alec MacDonald, Danny McGrain, you know, full football team of ex-pros. They still gave them an absolute doing. And that reminds me of that there. You should never judge a book with its cover, especially in football anyway, you know. Yeah. And I'll bet you $1 to a donut, the guy who wrote that article found out that bit of information for shoot, where they tap you a couple of pints on a Tuesday afternoon with somebody in the pub. That looks like something you don't ask that now. You ask Google now. You just ask somebody that was in a pub on a Tuesday afternoon talking to somebody or a couple of pints. That's the kind of stories you would get.
Brilliant. All right, Tom, hand it back to you.
Right, well, we'll just sort of wrap up then. Just quickly look at a couple of wee bits. Page 45. Page 45. So there's Jim McLean, Tangerine Terrors wanting the big one. Shrewd and talented Jim McLean, the Dundee United manager, is a man who knows a thing or two about football. Jock Stein is numbered among his admirers, and there's not much that goes on in the game that McLean, a brother of Rangers Tommy and Ayr United's Willie, does not know about. He's still currently shaping his Dundee United lineup, and is a man who readily admits he looks for perfection. Did you have any interactions with Jim McLean during your career, Andy?
I did. When I left Motherwell, he phoned me to see if I'd go to Dundee United. But I remember at the time, you know, it'd been such a bum deal at Motherwell like that, and things hadn't worked out. To be honest with you, I just tottering on the edge of finishing up anyway. And Jim phoned me up, and he offered me to come up for a year to Dundee United and play up there. But he offered less money, and I was on at Motherwell. And the only way you would qualify, they had massive big bonuses. The only way you qualify for bonuses if you played in the team. And he also wanted to move to Broughty Ferry and do all that nonsense of locating and relocating. And I remember saying to him, is there no way possible we could work around about the fact that, what if I'm injured? Well, you'll not get the bonus. What if I'm on the bench? Well, you get half the bonus. What if I'm not on the bench? Well, you get nothing, you know. That was his negotiating skills, Jim, you know. And I thought, nah, I don't really need that right at this moment in time. I didn't think it was the right move. And I certainly wasn't going to relocate like that. Definitely wasn't going to do that, because I'd relocated to go to Motherwell. And I wasn't going to do it again. I'd only been at Motherwell 6 months. So that was my only dealings with Jim. I spoke to him many times after that. I remember when I worked as assistant manager at St Mirren with Jimmy Bowen, we played them in the League Cup. I had a half-hour blather with him up there prior to the game at Tannadice. I'd taken a load of kids up there to play them one night. And he was asking things. And it settled himself down a wee bit by that time, I think, you know. The mad years were there for him, and he was beginning to mellow a wee bit, if that's the right the right phrase to hold to Jim, you know. But I didn't really know him that particularly well. I played in a testimonial that he'd organised. He'd phoned me as well for the fella who was hurted in the train crash. Can't remember his name now. That's terrible. It went from Queen's Park to Dundee United, and during that, he had a bad train smash on the way up. He travelled up in the mornings, and I played in his testimonial. It was through Jim. Jim asked me if I'd come up and do that, you know. But I didn't really know much other than that about him. But the players, I think, you know, he paid Paul Hegarty, he paid Davy Neary, who was the other one? The wee boy, wee Luggy, Sturrock, up front. You know, he paid all them good money. Everybody else was on lesser money. But he paid, I think they were paying 3 or 4 times the bonus that Celtic Rangers were paying at one time. But you had to be in the team to get it. Jim had the right idea with football, pre-Bosman. You got paid for results, but he just ripped the arse at it a wee bit, you know, and took it too far, as it says in the telly. If he'd been able to sort that out to make sure that the players were well looked after, and they were all well looked after together, you know, it would maybe have kept that team together a wee bit longer as well.
A charity partner this season is the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share. This is a charitable organisation that provides various services and support to the local community, including the following: a school uniform bank, school holiday brunch bags, food provisions, Christmas toy bank, cooking and growing lessons, and a baby bank. They provide essential support to the local community in supporting individuals and families, and we will be looking to support them in any way we can through the podcast. This will include drives for donations of food, money, and support in the form of volunteers. We will also be raising awareness of the group to highlight the work that they do, but also to ensure that families and individuals who can benefit from the group are aware of these vital services. You can follow them on the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share group on Facebook or West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share.co.uk for the website, and that's West Dunbartonshire with an N. You can also donate through our Just Giving page for the charity at justgiving.com/fundraising/shoot the breeze, one word. Also keep an eye on our Twitter accounts at shoottb_podcast and at Scott's Footy Cards for updates and news on our charity partner. We'd like to say a special thank you to Pete Wiley of the Mighty Wah for the use of the Story of the Blues in the music for our show. You can catch up with Pete on petewiley.co.uk, where you can check out the details of upcoming gigs and new music. We'd also like to thank our producer Diane Jardin for her great work and support on the podcast. Please check out transmissionroom.co.uk, where you can book music recording and rehearsal facilities in Clydebank.
Right, page 50. So page 50 is Steve Archibald, the man to end the Tottenham goals famine. So this is Steve Archibald, who's just recently moved from Aberdeen to Tottenham. And Spurs fans have started the countdown to August 16th for that is when Steve Archibald, nearly £1 million worth of goal-scoring potential, will show anxious Spurs fans whether he's the man to end the goals famine that separates Spurs from top honours. And I think he did. Spurs obviously went on to win the FA Cup 1981. And Archibald obviously was a success down there at Tottenham.
Did they win the European Cup?
They won the UEFA Cup in 84.
UEFA Cup 84, because he scored one of the penalties, one of the winning penalties, I think. Stevie Archibald. Yeah. He scored a lot of goals down there. Absolute stack of goals. Did he go to Barcelona after that?
Yeah, he was a class player, Steve Archibald.
Yeah, well, he must have done all right at Tottenham. You know, his next move was Barcelona.
And there, just beside that, there was next week a picture of Ian Wallace there. Well, Ian Wallace's £1 million transfer rekindled his Scottish international career.
He went to Nottingham Forest with Dumbarton, didn't he?
He went to Dumbarton, Coventry, and then he went to Coventry.
I didn't think he went for £1 million with Dumbarton. We'd never heard the end of that one, Dumbarton people. He had a great spell down there. I don't know if he still lives down there, I don't know. I remember meeting Stevie Archibald when I was doing some scouting, and I went to Marbella for 2 weeks during the winter. It was a thing called the Scandinavian Masters. You know, the best clubs in Scandinavia put up training base for to start new season. in Marbella, and they would play each other in round-robin tournaments called the Scandinavian Masters, obviously. And Stevie was there, was an agent at the time. And he was... all these Scandinavian players were there, but Stevie was trying to sell everybody Spanish players at that time, you know. You know, it's like going into an Indian restaurant and asking for Chinese food, you know. You're there to do one thing, you do it, and you move on to something else. So I don't think he lasted long in the agency game.
Right.
I think he's a very successful businessman there in Spain now. In fact, I know somebody that's putting together a book. You know, this will be Stevie Archibald's first book.
Right.
I think he's been trying to do it for about 10 years. Stevie's a bit like the Scarlet Pimpernel. Can't track him down, you know. But I think he still lives in Barcelona. That was the last I heard. The last time I spoke to him was at that Scandinavian Masters tournament.
Just getting back to your scouting there, Andy, you spoke about Kieran Dyer earlier on. Is there a particular player that you missed out on that you thought went on to become a bit of a star? What is it, couldn't get him?
There was one I couldn't get, and it worked out beneficial in the long run. You know, was Georgie Kinkladze at Manchester City. Absolutely phenomenal he was for about 18 months, 2 seasons. And any time I went to see him, he was just unreal. He was just one of these players that could get you up off your seat, even although you weren't a Man City supporter. And I'd heard that Man City would sell him, and they would sell him at a decent price. And I thought, that not very much money for Georgie Kinkladze. Little did I know he was a bit of a screwball, you know, and they didn't know where he was from one day to the next. They were just trying to capitalise and get the £4 million from him. And I spent a bit of time on that, trying to get him in. It was at the time when Celtic were just moving back from Hampden to Celtic Park, and with full stadium to fill and all that. I thought Kinkladze could just be the man for that. Anyway, he let us down at the 11th hour, and it worked out. It was probably the best deal I ever done for Celtic. I saved them £4 million buying a absolute no-go merchant, you know. He'd turn up whenever he wanted to turn up. He didn't last long. He went to somewhere in Spain or something and lasted about 6 months. He was gone. So that was dodging a bullet, scouting. There was one guy I would love to have got when I was at Aston Villa. It was a fella called Johan Miku, who played for Bordeaux and was a very good player. I saw him numerous times to try and get him in. You know, and the bit was he didn't have a lot of international caps, but he played understudy to Zinedine Zidane, which is no bad, you know. That's like following Frank Sinatra at karaoke. You know, he had a good record and everything else, and we didn't get him. Doug Ellis, the old chairman at Aston Villa at that time, pulled the plug late on in the deal and sacked the manager. So that didn't happen, and Miku went out to Roma, and you know, was a big star there in Roma, played really well. So I was really sorry for Aston Villa's benefit that, you know, we didn't get Miku in like that, because at that time we'd only just missed out by 2 points the previous season on Champions League football, and John Gregory wanted the best signings we could possibly to try and get a place in the top 6 in the Premiership. You know, if we'd have got Miku in, that would have led to other signings as well, you know. So they two were guys that I would like to have brought to the clubs that I was working with at that time. And also as well, I remember Wim Jansen wanting to bring 2 players in. I had never seen them. And he said to me, "Have you ever been to Japan?" I says, "No, unfortunately I haven't been to Japan." "Get your passport looked out, you will go to Japan soon." I said, "Right, okay." Gets that sorted out. I was travelling to Europe, but I wasn't going that far. And I went in to see him. He says, "Right, organise the trip." So I phoned up Canvas Line Travel for them to organise everything out like that. And I said to him, "Wim, who are the players that I'm going to see?" He said, "You're going to see a boy called Nakata. And you're going to see the Cameroon striker, what was his name? Patrick Mboma. They're both playing in Japan. Wim had seen them in Japan and was desperate to get the 2 of them there. Sorted everything out with them that come back, and to get it cleared off at top level up the stairs. And top level wouldn't let him send anybody out, and didn't want to sign the 2 players. And I believe that was the first time that Wim had ever run into any problems at Celtic Park in regards to signing new players. You know, after that, the whole relationship with the recruitment department and the football department and upstairs was bad. You know, they brought Jock Brown in to try and pour oil on it a few times, but it didn't work. I think when Vim knew that he wasn't going to be able to bring his own players in, he had more or less decided, because we hadn't brought in Paul Lambert by that time. You know, we managed to get Paul Lambert in later on after that, and you know, that made a wee bit of difference. But I think Vim more or less decided at that time, when he didn't get Nakata, who went on to play in the World Cup that summer, dyed his hair red for Japan and ended up playing with Lazio. And Patrick Mboma scored goals for the Cameroon in the World Cup as well. I think once Vim decided that he wasn't getting the players in he wanted, he was only going to be staying there a year.
Right, Andy Smith, I think that says just one more page. That says done. Steve Daly in the back page, but that's the end of the magazine.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember doing one of them for shoot.
That's what I was asking. I don't think I've found a focus on for you yet, so I'll keep looking. Before we go, it was mentioned that you were in the Melchester Rovers team. Is this correct?
I played for a season with Roy Race. Yes.
Because I've looked through the copies and stuff that I've got, so unfortunately I don't seem to have that. What sort of year would that have been? Would that have been?
I think that would have been about 77, 78, round about that time.
Right. I'll need to keep an eye out for that, because I had a chat with, Chris McNulty, who's on Twitter as well. But so he seems to remember it. He thinks he had a copy, but he thinks he moved it on. But it's definitely something.
Cover it down there, because Andy Ritchie played for Manchester United and Brighton and Oldham.
Mm-hmm.
So they could cover it down in England with an Andy Ritchie in England, and, for Roy the Rovers, Andy Ritchie in Scotland, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
They would put the players' names in. It was a big thing.
Yeah.
It was a big thing to play with Roy the Rovers, because we've all read that, we've all seen it, And,
yeah.
And I played as a left winger and with Roy Race, because I wore number 11, but I was never a left winger.
Yeah.
And you're mentioning earlier on, see this focus?
Yeah.
I remember doing this with you guys, and in it, you asked me a question earlier on about what pisses you off. I'd put in here Greenock traffic wardens, because that season I had got a sponsored car and it had my name on the side of the car down in Greenock.
Right.
Alexander's sponsor, Andy Ritchie, Morton. And everywhere I parked, I got a bloody parking ticket. The wardens just spotted the motor and just stuck the parking ticket on anyway. And when I took it back into the garage, about 25 parking tickets. Alexander's for 4 people in Greenock. And it was the day before I did this. And I'm trying to look through it. Miscellaneous dislikes, Greenock traffic wardens I put in, and that just made it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
The following week.
Yeah. Brilliant. Listen, Andy, what are you doing at the moment? So you said you're going to be getting involved again with the Morton show thing that's going on. But is there anything else you're involved with?
Well, Jerry McDade and myself. Jerry approached me about a year and a half ago to see if I'd get involved with the hospitality that he was doing at Capello, and one or two other things. I had done some things with Jerry as well, evenings with, audience with, all that kind of stuff round about. So I knew Jerry in the agency. So I agreed to do that. So for the year prior to, is there a term for it? A year prior to COVID, is that the right way of putting it?
Yeah.
We did the hospitality down at Greenock between the two years.
Right.
And it seemed to be reasonably successful. And then when COVID came in, that was put on hold. We had all that time off for the game. And then everybody to start up the footballing stream, the live games, given out, on stream like that, online, if that's the right phrase. And Jerry and myself did that, and it seemed to work, seemed to be successful. People who were tuned in quite enjoyed it. Jerry's very professional in what he does with the stream, and I just do my bit. That's all. The old Roy Walker one, say what you see. You try and be nice about it all. Sometimes you can, sometimes you're no. I'm not meaning to be nasty. I'm trying to be funny maybe sometimes when it comes out the other way, but it's just me. I just do what I'm doing. So that's what we were doing in regards to the football side of things, other than that, nothing. I applied for I applied for 2 jobs at Morton, would you believe?
Right.
And I've been refused the 2 of them. You know, so I applied for the kitman's job, would you believe?
Right.
And I would love to have got that job about a year and a half ago. Then the kitman had just left and they were going to be employing one. I intimated that I would like to go back down again and get involved in the football side of it. Hoppy wanted me to come in, do all that, join the backroom team with him, do the kit, do the scouting, use the experience there, 50 years that I've got in the game. And then COVID hit. And that was all put to the side. You know, the club was closed for that length of time. And then when the new people came in, they advertised for a kitman. I said, hold on a wee minute. I've already advertised for that job. Do I need to advertise again? No, you don't, Andy. Don't worry about that. You don't need to apply for the job. I thought, well, that's not bad. I've maybe got a wee chance of getting that. No, same again. No kitman's job like that. So I would love to have done that. I'd love to get involved and back in the club again. Yeah. You know, the supporters at Morton Football Club are absolutely fantastic. They've been brilliant to me. It's been 40 odd years since I played down at Morton. 4 decades plus. You know, and stuff that grandfathers have seen, they passed on to their sons, who have now passed on to their sons as well. Yeah. God bless YouTube. You know, every so often they get a goal that Andy Ritchie scores and it seems to please people. But the vast majority that come along to Morton games now never ever seen me playing football. Yeah. And that's nice. It gives you a nice warm glow of satisfaction for 10 seconds when that happens, when a 17-year-old boy wants to come up and use his telephone to take a phone to show somebody in his family his picture to you. So it's nice. I enjoy that. The football side of it, I would love to get back involved with the club, but they didn't want it. And the new Morton club together, they don't want it as well. They finally sent word back that, you know, they'd given the kitman's job out to somebody else. They didn't want to give it to me. So I'll be back to maybe doing the stream next year, hopefully with Jerry again. I think we've still to speak to them about that. We've done one already. And I'll be able to watch the games every fortnight. And I'm going to take another wee scouting job in the game that I'm just trying to sort out in the next week to 10 days. Working for another club. So that's my intentions. And I'll be 66 in February, so I'll be an old age pensioner by that time. So I'll be able to retire.
Brilliant.
That's my plans for the future.
No, listen, best of luck to you with it all, and I hope that all works out. And listen, I'm just going to thank you so very much for taking the time out to come onto the podcast and go through this with us. I'm sure
I've actually grew a beard for this podcast started.
Yeah, well, so have I, and I can't grow one, so that's how long we've been on. But no, listen, it's been absolutely fantastic. You know, you are an absolute, you know, I don't mind saying this to you, you're a legend of the Scottish game. So many people do have such great memories of you, and you know, as you said there as well, people are making new memories from watching the YouTube clips and things like that again. It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, from me personally, brilliant. Thank you for taking the time out.
No problem. I go to Greenock now and I feel like a politician. I'm kissing babies all the time, you know.
No.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you take care, and you know, I'll keep copying you in all the Andy Ritchie content that I find on Twitter, and yeah, again, all the best to you. Thanks to your son Stevie for sorting this out as well and sitting. Is he still there? Is he nodded off?
I think he's actually went out the back and committed suicide. He said to listen to this. Right. But that's what happens when you're a Celtic supporter. Yeah. You can put up with all this shit. Don't let it worry you.
So, thank you again, Andy, and thank you welcome. From me to all, people listening to the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, share the podcast, follow us. There'll be a website associated with this as well, so while you're listening back, you'll be able to see the pages that we've been speaking about as well. So from myself, thank you very much. It's from Tom. Thank you for being Tom.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy, again for joining us.
Thanks, Andy and Tom. God bless.
And until the next time, let's shoot the breeze.